Okay, guys, so I already went over the first two videos on matter and elements, and now we're going to go over the assignment that I gave you in class. And this is asynchronous Monday's work, so make sure that you know how to do this so that you can work on it on Monday on your own. So we're going to talk about chemical formulas and the PhET simulation. So remember, before we get started, the meanings of these words. An element, those are listed on the periodic table. They can't be separated into simpler substances. A compound is a mixture of different elements in one molecule. An atom is the smallest piece of matter possible, and it is one of the elements listed on the periodic table. So where you might have like an element is oxygen, a single atom of oxygen is just one tiny piece of oxygen, whereas an element might include a whole bunch of atoms of oxygen. A mixture is when you have a bunch of different substances in one place. And here's the link to the website we're going to use. It takes a moment for this to load, so be patient with it, but it'll pop up. I already have it open over here, so I'm going to keep it open. When I move to my next slide here, you'll see your instructions at the top and a form that you're going to fill out here. So open the website and click single to get started. On the screen at the bottom, you'll see some bowls of atoms, and on the right, you'll see a list of molecules you must make. To get to other bowls of atoms, click the arrows on either side of the white box holding the bowls. Use the atoms to make the molecules and fill out the chart below. So notice that this has H2O, O2, H2, CO2, and N2. Those are the chemicals you're going to be building in part 1. If I head over to that build a molecule simulation, you'll see that I have choices: single, multiple, or playground. We're going to start with single, and you can jump through the 3 different forms down here at the bottom. Notice that I have a white box at the bottom that has my atoms in it. This is 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And I have 3 different boxes, so I can rotate between them with these arrows, because sometimes I might need nitrogen. So they leave those in there. So I'll go back to the first one. Notice over here on the right, my collection of molecules. I have H2O, O2, H2, CO2, and N2, the same ones from my worksheet. Now, when I build an atom, or a molecule rather, I take my atoms and I drag them up to the workspace. I'm going to build H2O, or water. I need 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, which is exactly what I have here. When I put these near each other, they will bond with one another. And I can hit this blue arrow button to separate them, because maybe I didn't want them connected. This isn't a completed atom, though. Every atom has a certain number of bonding sites that it needs to fill. And we'll get into those later. But know that this isn't finished until I get the 3D button and the name of the compound listed right above it. So this is water. It's a real compound, H2O. And I can click it and drag it right over here where my blue arrow is pointing at the water. And I can click the 3D button to get a 3D model of it. I can use my mouse to move it around. I can hit the pause button if I don't want it to spin on its own. And then I can also view it not just as 2 atoms, but I can view it as a ball and stick model, and I can see where the bonds are. Notice that I have 1 bond between each one of these. That's fairly easy to break, a single bond. Other times, like if I go to the nitrogen, N2 is going to require 2 nitrogens. If I look at the 3D model of that, notice that it has 3 bonds. I always relate this to holding a child's hand. If you've ever held a small child at the playground or somewhere and they're trying to run away from you, if you're holding them with 1 hand, it doesn't take much for them to get away from you. But if you're holding them with 2 hands, we have a much stronger bond. It's going to take more energy from the child to get away from you. If you could somehow have 3 hands on them, they're not going anywhere. So when things are triple bonded together, it makes it very hard to break them apart. Double bonds do require some energy, but it's possible. And then single bonds tend to be very easy to break apart, particularly for things like hydrogen bound on the edges of this water molecule. All I have to do is pass a small electrical charge through there, and I can break the oxygen and hydrogen apart. So let me put all these back, and now let me show you where this is going to make an impact on the worksheet. So I'm going to come over here to my H2O column on my worksheet, and the first thing I want to know is the number and kind of elements. Well, what elements do I need to build H2O? I'm going to need some hydrogen, and I'm going to need some oxygen. How many hydrogen am I going to need to build water? Well, I look at the little subscript here, and it says 2. So I'm going to need 2 hydrogen. And how many oxygen will I need? It doesn't have a subscript. So that means just 1. So I'm going to need 1 oxygen. 2 hydrogen plus 1 oxygen will get me an H2O. And then draw it. So the best way to do this is with a pencil and paper, but given COVID and the way we're all working online right now, use any method you can come up with to put a picture of that H2O molecule there. Perhaps you want to come over here and take a screenshot. On my PC, I have a wonderful snipping tool. I can just snip this, copy it, and I could paste it right in here. And then I can just shrink it down and put it right in that box. If you want to take a screenshot with your phone and actually take a photo of the screen, take a picture and put it in there. If you want to draw it on a piece of paper and then take a picture of that and put it in there, just so long as your picture of your molecule is in that box on this slideshow, I don't care how it got there. I found that this was probably the easiest way to do it, is that there is a shape tool here in your menu, and if you click on the circle, you can make yourself a circle. While it's highlighted, if I just press H, it will put it in here in the middle of my circle. It'll be a part of the shape. Stretch it out a little bit so it's more in the center, and then I need 2 of those, so I will copy and paste those and make 2 of them. I also know that I need an oxygen, so I can just paste another one, change this to O, and change the background color of the circle, fill it with something else, it doesn't really matter what, and now I've got an H2O molecule. Fairly simple to use. And as I get to my next one, you see I have O2, I can just then make copies of this one and move these over here as I need them. It's fairly easy, although I'll admit with the Chromebook it can be a little hard to manipulate them. But once you have each one, we're only really using 4 or 5 different elements for this whole thing. So you can easily put together a couple circles and then just keep copying and pasting them. And then the last question is it an element or is it a compound? So is water an element or is it a compound? Well, it's made of more than one thing, right? It's hydrogen and oxygen, so it's going to be a compound. So I'll highlight this. Any color, doesn't matter, just so long as I can see that you chose one of those answers. If you want to delete the other one, that's fine too. So that's the first section. The next sections are going to be just like this with just a little more detail added. So on the second page, you'll see that I've added what we call a coefficient. This is a giant 2 before the molecule. And again, I was so focused on this subscript with the number 2 here, because if you have a full-size number, it means something else. So this is actually saying 2 CO2 molecules. Now to build these molecules, I'm going to go back to my molecule builder, my PhET simulation here, but I'm going to click on the multiple window. And you'll see that I have the same 4 elements here as I do on my chart. And so I'm going to come up here and make a CO2. Drag up a C, and then O2, and then bond these together, Carbon dioxide, look, it's flashing. It put the blue up. So my goal was to have 2 CO2 molecules. I have 1 CO2 molecule. I need to build another one. What that coefficient is telling me is it's saying, how many of that atom do I have? Now I'm good. I have 2 CO2 molecules. So again, when I come back over, shoot, I just closed it. When I come back over here, and I head down to that slide, I think it's slide 4, I've made my 2 CO2 molecules. Well, the number and kind of elements in one molecule is exactly what we did on the screen before. I'm going to have carbon, and I'm going to have oxygen, and it's going to require 2 oxygen and 1 carbon to build this. Because there's no subscript after the C, I only need 1 to build 1 molecule of CO2. But the coefficient here is telling me that I need to build 2 of these molecules. So if I'm going to build 2 molecules, and they each require 1 carbon, 1 times 2 is going to mean that in total I need 2 carbon. And how many oxygen? Well, I need 2 oxygen per molecule, and I'm making 2 molecules, so 2 times 2 is 4. And then the same thing stands for the draw it. Do whatever means you need in order to draw it. I'm going to copy this. I'll come down here, paste it in. There's, oop. If it does that to you, it's because you're inside the cell of the table. You want to just click outside and then paste again, and it'll paste the picture in for you. So there's my oxygen. I'll make another one. Put that over here, and then make another one. Change it to carbon, putting that to a C, and let's change the fill color to something else. We'll do gray. Move this over there, and move this over there. Now I've got my CO2, and I need 2 of them. If you highlight one and hold down Control while you click on the others, it'll let you select the whole group, and then I can press Control C to copy them and Control V to paste them. And now I've got this whole other molecule created again. It's not too hard to use as long as you know the shortcuts. Now, is this an element or a compound? That's right. Again, it's a compound because it's made of more than one element. And now that one's complete as well. When we get to the 3rd page, you're going to want to click on Playground, and this one's going to be a little harder. I've filled in this chart in some places with information. I want you to use that information to work backwards and fill in the rest of the chart. You should know that this picture is not in your slideshow. I had Google create a copy for all of you, and it's lacking this picture. So I'm going to attach this picture on the classroom so you'll be able to see it. This is where it belongs, and you'll be able to use it to fill in this column. On yours, it's just a blank column, and that's not helpful. So at the end, there's a couple of questions to answer. What do the little subscripts mean? What do the big numbers in front, the coefficients mean? How do you know which element the little number goes with? A couple other questions. Finish this whole slideshow up and submit it. If you have any questions about it, you can always ask me with an email. Ask me to take a look at what you've done. I can go in and look at it half completed and let you know if you're on the right track. I guess that's it. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Have a good weekend.